Hi, Blind Prime here, and this is my co-host Cream the Cat doing his normal thing of sleeping. His jobs are sleeping, knocking things off my table, and interrupting my videos. Today, he's sleeping on my elbow. He really likes my elbow as a pillow, don't you? Yes, you like my elbow as a pillow, you sleepy fat thing. Yeah, you sleepy fat orange cat. I like to imagine that he looks like the big orange cat from The Cat Returns. That's my image of Cream in my head, because he is just as fat as that cat. Yes, you are. You are just as fat as that big orange cat from Cat Returns, which is one of my favorite movies. I like that movie. Yes, I do. You're a cat. So, today we're going to be talking about some do's and don'ts when it comes to assisting the blind. I'll go over some do's and I'll go over some don'ts with you when it comes to it. I will be specific about this situation. Assisting the blind, moving around an area, navigating an area. And this area could be a restaurant, this area could be a street, this area could be anything. But the point is navigating an area. Now, I'll also explain to you some tips, or at least one tip that I have when it comes to navigating things like grocery stores, which I will share with you because I think that all blind people need to know that tip. It's an awesome one, and I like to know how many blind people are actually using it. Let me know in the comments if you're a blind person using the tip that I give you at the end of this video. So, stay tuned to the end for the fun tip. Now, when it comes to the do's and don'ts, I have to say that the point to making this video is to try and illuminate on some darker areas, to try and get the impression off on people that how to treat the blind people out there. As a visual person, you come across a visually impaired person, there's do's and don'ts when it comes to approaching them and and talking to them, especially if you want to assist them or help them in any way whatsoever. So let's go over those right now. Don't number one. Don't just assume a blind person needs help. It's a pretty simple one. 90% of the time, they don't. 10% of the time, they do. But you, as a visual person, are most likely used to seeing other-sighted people. So their eyes are locked onto something. But us blind people, we don't lock our eyes on anything. Our eyes just kind of wander around and do their own thing. They've gone rogue, and we don't really care what they do anymore. So, if we're not wearing our little protective glasses, which protect our eyeballs from random things like, rocks being picked up by a car, specks of dust, stuff like that, our eyes will be all over the place. We'll look confused. We'll look very confused. But we're not. We're usually listening to something. Probably our Google Maps telling us what road we need to cross next. Or we're listening to traffic to figure out when is it going to stop so I can cross the road. Or we're listening to a conversation that somebody's having across the road because it seemed like an interesting story. Or we're listening to an ambulance across the city going to the hospital, or a bird song down the street. We're listening to a lot of stuff at the same time. Yeah, you woke up from sleeping and you moved into interruption immediately? Yeah, what's next? Are you going to move to knocking things off the table? Are you going to initiate the knocking things off the table program? No, he went back to initiating sleep. So, don't just assume the blind person needs help. Now, if you think they need help, the do in that regard is to approach them and ask, or not approach them and ask. And that's two separate occasions, and we'll get into those. So, don't just assume a blind person needs help. The other don't is don't assume you know the help the blind person needs, because you may be wrong in that assumption. For instance, I was once standing at a street corner, and this homeless guy came up to me, grabbed me around my neck, or his hands here, and his body's here, and he did not, he reeked. He was pretty bad, and so his stinky armpit was all over my shoulder, staining up my shirt. I had to change shirts afterwards, and he yanked me across the road. Just grabbed me off the street corner and went, buddy, I'm helping you, 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 buddy, I'm helping you, buddy, I'm helping you, buddy, I'm helping you across the road. And he helped me cross a road, but not the road I needed to cross. And then on the other side, What did he do? He asked me for money. So I gave him some arcade tokens that I kept in my pockets for occasions like that because of the sheer amount of homeless people that had tried to assist me across the wrong road and just made assumptions, grabbed me, and started yanking me in a direction that they thought I needed to go. And that happened enough times where I just carried arcade tokens with me. And I gave them arcade tokens. And they're like, well, this ain't money. What can I do with this? And I'd reply, well, this isn't where I wanted to be. What can I do with this? No, tit for tat. And sometimes I have to do it. But that is a situation that occurs for us a lot. Somebody will grab us and yank us in a direction that they think we need to go. They don't even ask us. They just grab us and start yanking. And my question is, when I was sighted, nobody ever did that to me. Nobody ever touched me like that. Nobody ever came up to me and treated me like I was a lesser than them. Like I was some sort of thing that they could just grab and throw around. Nobody ever did that to me when I had sight. So whenever I became sightless, I guess there's a sign that grew on my forehead that said, you can treat me like I'm not a human being. That's not cool. You know, there's laws about that. Like, I'm pretty sure it's considered assault when somebody touches you without your permission like that, aggressively. And, you know, it's considered kidnapping when they take you to a place that you did not want to be without your permission. And so you got to ask yourself that question. Is this blind person a lawyer? Because, you know, before you do any of this thing, because, you know, spoiler alert, 40% of us are lawyers. You got to ask yourself that question. Is that blind person a lawyer? Because if you grab them and yank them across a road that they don't want to be on, and they're a lawyer, you're screwed, buddy. You are screwed, especially if you drag them in front of a gas station where there's cameras. Like that guy always did to me. But, you know, he was homeless, so I never bothered with anything but giving him game tokens because I didn't want to screw up his life any more than it was already screwed up. I just wanted to teach him a lesson and be like, yo, dude, don't treat people like that. You know, be nicer to people. I try to be nice to all the people around me because I don't know who I'm going to need to ask for help one day. So it's best if I'm just polite to everybody. And I'm not a dick. And I try not to be a dick. But sometimes dickishness occurs. That's usually when somebody does something to me that I consider to be a dick move. And then I just reply with a dick move. So that's a don't. Just don't grab a person and start yanking them across where you think they need to go. Now the other don't when it comes to the sighted in interacting with the blind is don't grab them by their clothing. Number one, don't grab them. And number two, for the love of God, don't grab us by our clothing. Think to yourself right now, have you ever grabbed a person by their clothing and yanked them around a place? And if you have, the next question is, was that person under the age of 10? Was that person a child that you were just like, come on, come on, Timmy, we got to go over here now. And you grab them up and yank them over to where you need them to go. But do you treat an adult like that? Huh? Do you walk up to somebody in the mall who looks a little lost and then you grab them by their shirt sleeve and start yanking them around? Do you do that to them? If you don't, then the question is, why do it to a blind person? And this is the question I've had for a while. Why? Why do people grab our clothing and yank us around? I don't know the answer to it. I simply don't. But I do know that when I went blind, people started doing it. People started doing it. In fact, my dad's done it a few times, and I've had to get on to him about it. And I'm like, why did you start grabbing me by my clothing? You never did that before. You never did that before. What about me being blind made it okay to grab my clothing? You think I got an iron at home that I can just take this shirt off and re-iron it? Huh? You think I got the disposable income to buy a new shirt once the neck's been all stretched out? I don't have those things. I do the snap method when I dry my clothes. I dry my clothes, I snap them, I fold them, they're good. I don't look frumpy, I look good. And it's important for me to do that because an assumption people have about the blind is that they don't know how to wash their own clothing and they don't know how to do things. So whenever I walk around dressed nice, looking spiffy, that is something that, it breaks the norm for those people. They're like, wait a minute, the blind can look nice? And yeah, that's part of raising awareness, is ensuring that when people see you, they see something more. Because you may be the first blind person they ever see, and it's important you leave a good impression on them. And I didn't want this responsibility. I never asked for this responsibility to be a person that's supposed to, you'll make a good impression for an entire disability group. But every blind person has that responsibility. Every disabled person has that responsibility. If you're not a disabled person, then you don't understand. You don't understand the responsibility that all the disabled have to be as polite and nice as possible, because you can't help but think, what if there's another person in my situation and they have it worse than me? You can't help but think that. So you want to treat people well so that if there's another person with your condition that comes around, they treat them well. Whether or not that person actually treats them well is irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that you left the good first impression. You made them think that blind people are actually smart, intelligent, snappy dressers who are quick with a comeback and the most polite people you've ever met in your life. That's what you want to leave a person with when they first come across, any disability. If you've got a disability, you want to leave that person with that in their heads, not all that poor person. No, you don't want that in their heads. You want them amazed. You want them thinking. That's the important thing right there. Reminding them that you're an equal, and it's difficult. It's difficult. It's a responsibility. So here's the do's. Okay, we just went over the don'ts. Those are 3 don'ts that I absolutely just do not like. Okay, so and I'm not alone. I've gone to blind conventions, and these are things that blind people have complained about from across the United States of America, from all the way in Hawaii. I talked to a person in Hawaii when we were having a conference down in Orlando, and they were sharing the same stories, how people grab them and yank them around, and they don't like that, and they just don't understand why people think it's okay. And I don't understand why people think it's okay. But I've got a good friend, a good friend, a friend I've had for almost 20 years, grabs me by my clothing and yanks me around. And I just don't understand when that happened, because he never did that before I went blind. Not once did that person ever grab me by the clothing. And they do it. They don't even think about it. They just grab me by my shirt sleeve and yank me around. And I'm like, what's up with that? Did a trigger just get flipped in everybody's head around me? What happened there? So here's the do's, okay? Because that's a question I don't think any philosopher will be able to really figure out. I think that one's up there with, why is there only one sock when I put 2 in the dryer? The do's are, when you see a blind person and you're approaching a blind person, make a noise. Snap your finger, scuff your foot, clap your hands, jingle your keys, make a racket. We appreciate that. That has informed us of where you're at. If you were a silent walker, you were not showing up on our radar. All right, I don't know about other blind people, but personally, I have something in my head akin to the radar from Halo games and stuff, where there's like moving blips around, and every one of those blips is a different noise, and I color code my noises, figuring out which is a vehicle, which is a person, which is an animal, and which is just the wind, and which is just a tree making a creak. Those things. So everything gets labeled in my head, and there's this little radar, and everything's moving around in a little radar, and I'm constantly updating it. It takes a lot of processing power. I joke with people that I think I may be smarter if I wasn't spending so much time, being aware of the environment around me. I was using a lot of processing power, keeping up with all that data. And so it's important that you make a noise like that. You popped up, you just popped up on my radar. The moment you scuffed your foot, bing, you're there. And then once you do that, you can go, hey, mate, or hey, blind guy, or something even better. Find an article of clothing they're wearing. Go, guy with the stick. I get that one a lot. I appreciate that one. You're, hey, guy with the stick. Or guy with the hat. I wear a hat a lot, so I wear a leather fedora, and it's I talked about that in my blind armor video. But guy with the hat has been used as an approaching mechanism, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey, man, do you know where you're at? Yeah, yeah, I'm at this corner. Oh, do you need any help? Nah, I'm good. Thanks for asking, mate. And then they move on. That's the interaction I like. Because if I needed help, I've been like, yeah, man, I'm trying to get across this road. This traffic's nuts. Can you help me out? That's a good one. You know, that's cool. That person gets two thumbs up from me for the way they acted, and that's how you're supposed to approach a blind person. Be polite, be cordial, be respectful, treat them like any other person on the street. That's important. Best thing is, it's the United States of America, so treat them like they have a gun in their pocket. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the sighted just treat us differently because they know we're the one group that doesn't have a gun in our pocket. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. The next thing to do is if you see a blind person crossing a road and you really want to help them cross the road, then the best thing you can do for that blind person is to walk to the other side of the sidewalk, the one they're walking towards. Okay, if they're walking down this little line and you're standing at the other side of the street and this is the street, and then they start kind of going off to the edge and it looks like they're going to walk through that fire ant bed on the other side of the street, you could stand at the sidewalk entrance and go, hey mate, hey blind guy, and then we just go to you. That's all you have to do. You just got to stand at the entrance to something and go, hey, over here, the entrance, and we will love you for it. We'll appreciate you. I will, at least. I absolutely adore it when individuals do that because it tells me they're actually thinking. They looked at me and they thought about the situation I was in. They thought about what if I was in that situation, and then they did the thing that they would like somebody to do to them when they're in that situation, which is just call out and give a stationary point of recognition. I can use that call to determine exactly where I am, because as much as we want every crosswalk in America to have the beeps, we know that America will never give us all the beeps. We won't get all the beeping crosswalks. Heck, we got 3 crosswalks installed on this road that I live on. A very popular road. Not a single one of them beeps. These were installed not 3 years ago. Okay? Understand that. These things aren't even 5 years old and they don't beep. So my question is, why is it that they still make non-beeping crosswalks? When everybody knows there's blind, but I need to rear that back. I need to pull that back in because that's not the subject of the video. So what's the final do? All right, the final do when it comes to assisting a blind person is when it comes to how you help them, and it's the question of when you ask if they need help, you go, do you want to hold my arm? Do you want to hold my shoulder? Do you want to hold my hand? That's all. That's all we need. We may need the arm or the shoulder if there's supposed to be some upwards and downwards motions going on like that. But if we're just trying to cross a road, just grab us by the hand. I'd appreciate somebody just grabbing me by the hand instead of the shirt. That would be nice. Just lead me by my hand. I don't care. That's nicer than other things. And everybody's seeing that's like, oh, person's helping a person out. Helping a blind person. Oh, they're holding hands. That's sweet. They think positive things about that interaction anyway. And that's what I want to happen. That's why I made this video. I'm trying to ensure that there's more positive interactions between the blind and the sighted and less negative interactions between the blind and the sighted. And you can help your blind friends out by doing these and by not doing the don'ts. Okay, so do the do's, don't do the don'ts. That's pretty simple. And finally, the tip before I let you out. When shopping at a grocery store, the best way I have found to shop is I usually shop with a sighted assistant. And I have found that if I tell I treat my my shopping carts like a canoe. And if you've ever used a canoe, know that I think more blind people need to be using canoes because a canoe requires 2 people. One person in the back is the power, And the person in the front is the steering. And the sighted person goes in the front, and the blind person goes in the back. All we have to do is power it. And all the sighted person has to do is steer it. And that's what I do with the shopping carts. I treat them like a canoe. I tell the sighted person, get in front of the shopping cart and hold it with one hand. And then I stand behind the shopping cart and push. Now, if we're doing it right, the sighted person doesn't need to push at all, doesn't need to pull the shopping cart. They just rest their hand on it and they move it left or right where it needs to go. They steer it. That's all they have to do. No effort is required on their part but to steer so that you don't slam your shopping cart into a toddler. That's an important thing not to do. Don't go running toddlers over with your shopping cart. So have a sighted person you can trust, leading your shopping cart around, and you can push it no matter how much gets in there. And the best part about this method is that you, as the blind person, can finally move at your speed. I don't know about you, but I had to slow down immensely. I had to basically go to turtle speed. I used to be a rabbit speeder. I used to walk all over the place real quick. I used to be fast about everything. And now I have to be slow about everything. And it drives me crazy. So I love going to the store because I'll get a sighted person who likes moving quick, and I'll tell them to grab the shopping cart front. And then I get to move just as fast as they move. And it's glorious. And I love every minute of it because I basically get to sprint. And I don't get to sprint very often, except on like a treadmill. But you're not going anywhere when you sprint on a treadmill. So remember that as a blind person, that technique, that trick. And as a sighted person, you see a blind person shopping at the store, tell them that trick if they're not using it, because they may not have even thought about it. But once you tell them about it, they will love you forever for it, because it will give them a little more independence. It will allow them to stretch muscles they haven't been able to stretch because they've been too scared of getting themselves hurt. I know I'm worried about it. I've got 4 scars on top of my head from times that I rushed when I shouldn't have rushed. Times I hurt myself whenever I just got a little bit ahead of myself and forgot about my visual impairment. I enjoyed the rush of the speed too much and forgot that I was visually impaired. And ended up relearning that I was visually impaired the hard way, usually by slamming into something that went dong really loud too. But thank you all so much for watching today's video. I've enjoyed making it. I know that Cream's enjoyed sleeping through it. And I hope you've all enjoyed listening to it or watching it, depending on your sight ability. And please, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye for now. Ah, right. My stupid S Pen died.